morning, Robbie.
Welcome. Today's July 19th. It's a Thursday. It's 9:42 a.m. Central Standard Time. And all aboard. Welcome to the Crushing Iron Triathlon Podcast.
9:42. What a strange time to get it going.
Seriously, but hey,
we're not too rigid over here.
No, we're not. We're not. We're the guys that it's okay if we end a run that says like 4 miles, 4.87 miles, and we don't feel the need to like run around our driveway, in circles to make it an even 5. We're okay with where we are and what we got, and that's just good enough.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I think I've done that in the past, but...
Oh, I think everybody's done it in the past, man. I probably do it like once a month. I'll get to my house and I'll run past it by like 4 mailboxes and then turn around just to make it like an even 6 or an even 7 or whatever run it is I'm doing. But I definitely don't make a habit of it, that's for sure. I usually just go for the time, but if I'm really, really close, I think I usually do it. But I've ended in like the high 4.8s and even like the 9s sometimes.
Yeah, I don't. That's what we do. We're human beings, and we do strange little things like that.
This is true. We all do strange little things.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what?
No, it adds up, I guess.
It does add up. And boy, did we get a lot of little thing comments yesterday. We haven't done a Q&A or answer our listener questions, I guess, in a while, and so I posted up something yesterday, and holy moly, did we get a pretty solid response. Something like 30 or 40, I think, questions.
Yeah, and I thought they're pretty solid questions, some of them.
Yeah,
most of them.
Definitely most of them. I mean, some of them we've obviously covered before.
Yeah,
but a lot of little subgroups. I saw lots of nutrition questions, motivation questions, race, and then some specific cycling questions were kind of the ones that kind of rose to the top. But I thought that before we got started on the listener questions, and this kind of parlayed into those that posted yesterday about struggling with motivation. That seemed to be a common theme for a few athletes in the questions there. I think I saw like maybe 3 or 4 in terms of like how to get your mojo back or struggling with motivation or in between races, and how do we find that, right?
Yeah, right. That's a big one.
So I was thinking about this morning, and then you and I texted back a little back and forth this morning, but you and I both got an email last night from a listener. And I think I'm gonna read it, and then kind of share what's transpired within our team, closed team Facebook page this morning. I think it's a good message for everybody. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I say go for it. Yeah.
So I'll read this email. I'll be as quick as I can. It's a little lengthy, but I promise that it's worth listening to. And then the story afterwards is pretty cool. But for anybody, I think, kind of struggling with motivation on getting workouts in, or forgetting your why, or things you need to feeling like we always have to have something to train for, and I get that, but I think this is overall is a really good story. So we got this last night, and says, and I'll keep it anonymous. He says, and I'm still deployed currently in Kuwait. Thanks for doing all you do. Podcasts are such an inspiration, as I'm constantly seeking for meaning in things that we do on a daily basis. A little side note to the going watchlist debate: my Garmin VivoActive HR died after a 15-minute continuous buzz. It very likely took water in when I was in the lap pool at camp. I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce that. Camp Irifan is what it looks like. Past due its warranty. Probably the plastic seal couldn't handle the temperature difference based on the exposure to 130-degree heat outside and then 65-degree inside. since then I'm doing my runs on Nirvana mode, which I love that phrase. I know the distances between every single corner of this small hell, what is called the Kuwait naval base. Therefore, I have knowledge of distance, but freelancing the time and pace part, going absolutely by feel, and temps are usually around 100 to 105-ish when I run at 6 a.m. I can still get a solid 8-miler, maybe 10 on a good day, 4 to 5 times a week. Once a week, I'm going out at 3 p.m., and I called this a suicide mission. It is usually around 118-ish in the shade. And trust me, it is not. There is no such thing as shade here. So under the bare sun, I'm sure it's 130s, as this is when I do my intervals of 2 minutes fast, 4 minute jog of 4 to 6 sets, which is just nuts. Okay, I'll cut to the chase. I'm going through an emotional roller coaster over my cancer-battling dad. I signed up for Ironman Chattanooga this September. Last week, my command was so understanding to accept my request to go on an emergency leave, which is almost impossible to get, to see him in Istanbul, Turkey, where he is being treated for stage 3 colon cancer. I got to spend 4 full days with him, not having seen each other for more than 5 years. I really needed my dad time before it's too late. We recalled the good old days where he used to make me chase him in the trails when I was 5 or 6 years old. Now I realize that is when the endurance sports needs planted in some 35 odd years ago. In today's run, I was listening to podcast 179 where Rob said somewhere in the lines of, if you have a solid base build-up, a full distance should not be any issue, even if you haven't logged any 5-hour rides or 20-mile runs. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do Ironman Chattanooga, and I'm going to do it in the name of my father before it's too late. And I'm going to dial in on the WhatsApp video at the finish line and tell him this one's for you. And then after that, he kind of talked about he was in need of asked about a training plan, and what he has access to. And so anyway, I read that real early this morning, like before 6, and responded and then posted anonymously that into our team Facebook group. And it wasn't even 6:30 a.m. before I had text messages and Facebook messages from athletes asking to pay for his training plan, to help cover some of his travel costs, and for, I think another athlete offered him a Garmin 910 and the other one offered him a bike.
Wow, that's amazing. Man.
And it's just people give it's no surprise coming from the team that we have, that they're such nice, generous and awesome people. But that so many people, consider triathlon and triathletes such a selfish sport. In that, everybody looks out for themselves and doesn't really care about other people. But, just this guy's story, and then, what he's going through and his conditions that he has to train in, and then the outpouring of support, and I'm sure a lot of people would have been the same way. But, basically our team is basically in a span of 2 hours, rallied around this guy to basically do anything we can to help support, this journey, which is 70 plus days away. And it's just what better day to start the day, for me. But I think especially it's this is the best part of, what you and I call a job.
Yeah, for sure.
Which isn't a job. It's everybody always talks about, making a living and doing this, and it's to me, making a living, yeah, you should want to provide for your family, but the making a living part is what do you do on a daily basis, or what do you have the opportunity to do on a daily basis with your job or your line of work or whatever you call it, to help make impacts on lives. And while neither one of us do this on a daily basis, it's we always get these emails every once in a while. And it's this is why I love what I do so much, is this kind of thing. And then obviously as a coach, knowing that, for somehow in some way, you've been fortunate enough and been blessed enough to work with such amazing athletes that are willing to be so generous and just like give away, like without even like seeing this guy's face, like, help is just like, this is as good as it gets.
Yeah, and I gotta admit, when I saw that the first time, I didn't realize that he hadn't signed up for Chattanooga, and that basically all came out of listening to that podcast, and then that put that in motion. Is that what I'm reading right?
Yeah, that's what I got. That's what I got from it too.
So, yeah, that's pretty wild. And then how that connects people, and I think that's the thing we underestimated, or at least I underestimated getting into this. It's just when you touch people, how that can touch other people. You know what I mean? Like, what his situation produced, and then how other people that had no idea that was going to happen, and it just constantly happens. And so it's just that one little thing that you don't think that's going to matter, right? That matters hugely. And it happens, and we're seeing it all the time. And I totally agree with you. It's the best part for sure is when people, I don't know, man. It's like, because I think that's the full circle in a way, because obviously if you told my story, I got into this in quote unquote selfish reasons, right? But as you sort of grow in the sport and understand the power of what's going on and how people that improve and what kind of changes that can make in everyone's life, you just change your perspective on it. It really is more about touching other people and helping other people, It's just so cool.
Yeah, and it's the stuff that we should hear more about.
Yeah.
In terms of like, because I don't know. I feel like in the day that the world that we live in now, it's like all you hear about is like the bad stuff and people, complaining and moaning about this and that. But like, there's a lot of good people out there, and this guy and I were kind of texting back or messaging back and forth. And he's like, I don't know, I'm not ever gonna like be able to say thank you or pay back these people, these athletes. I'm like, they don't want to be paid back. Like, this is just, honestly, this is how the world should be. Like you see something that makes you feel good and you want to help, and you do it without like expecting anything in return, and like just doing it because it makes you feel good and you feel like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
that's really how simple it should be. But it's a great story, and he's gonna do awesome. I look forward to working with him. Definitely a training environment and training situation I haven't dealt with before in the past, given his restraints. But as a coach, like the reason I love it so much isn't because our results important, sure. To an extent, but the most important part for athletes, in my opinion, is what they learn along the way, and then knowing the backstories of what it takes and like what the accomplishment is. And so, when you're a coach or any coach, and you get an opportunity, to work with an athlete and athletes, because I have tons of them, and they don't have this same story, but they have, all their own stories. And so when you see, and I think we've touched on this before, like when you see them finish, it's like, I don't even like see the time. I know what it is, but it's like, you understand how much this means to them. And that's why it's incredibly awesome to coach. Also why it's a little bit stressful. That's sometimes I honestly I think like, man, like sometimes I wish I just didn't care as much, because I wouldn't be so stressed. Like, not stressed, but I guess I wouldn't be like, when you're so invested in the athlete more than you are their time, then things kind of shape differently. But I wouldn't change it for the world, and I just thought that was a good story for us to start off with, and a good reminder of however you want to apply it to your life in terms of perspective. And getting your motivation that if you want something bad enough, regardless of the why, then you're going to find a way. Mm-hmm. And that there's plenty of people out there that can support you in it if you if you choose to, ask for assistance in kind of any way.
Yep. Well, it'll be interesting to see how you translate your theories of heat training and how that may apply to hills, and how it transfers in a good way. You talk about heat training all the time and how you think that's one of your favorite strategies, really, even more so than altitude on times, right? Or am I just making this up?
Yeah, heat over altitude for sure. But at some point,
well, not like Chattanooga's altitude, really.
No, but it's the last 2 years it's been a scorcher. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to work with the kind of the restraints that we have. But it's that's what coaching is. It's everybody. Everybody has basically the same question, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to get the same answer. You got 20 athletes that are going to train for a race. They all want to finish. They all want to do this, but the training is going to look different because the answers are always different, based on the person. Athlete A might be 2 + 2 gets them the 4. Another athlete might be 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 gets them the 4. Another athlete might be, 8 - 4 gets them the 4. That's what coaching is. There's kind of, there's some things that are important, but then it's just, manipulating things here and there to get what needs to get done. And that's why I love it. That's why it's, it's challenging, and you got to always be looking for, a way to you just got to find a way. And then with something like this, with, a small place to run and only a Le Mans training bike on base and one trip to the pool a week, maybe it's going to be interesting. But I love interesting, and I love stories even more. So I look forward to working with this guy. And hey, if you're lacking motivation, or you're lacking mojo, go get it back. And I think with that, we can dive into our first few questions.
Yeah, let's do it. We're talking about heat and hydration and things like that. Matthew wants to know liquid versus solid nutrition on the bike and benefits of each. What do you think about that one?
This is very, very common.
Is that 1 + 1 + 1, 2 + 4 - 8.
Yeah, it is. I've always been a huge fan of liquid, as much liquid nutrition as you can over solid nutrition, just because it's more easily digestible. Like you take in 100 calories of, through like a liquid, whether it's EFS or Tailwind or whatever, versus 100-calorie Cliff Bar. Digesting that Cliff Bar is going to take a minute. Versus the other one, but there are also athletes, and you have like back and forth. A lot of it's also personal preference.
Yeah, well, I'm one of them, or I had been one of them.
Yeah, and everybody works different. I've got some athletes who can't do solids, and they just can't. They've tried it, it doesn't work, so they got to go the liquid route. Then you have other athletes who they get hungry and they need something to change up. And I on a half, I go straight liquid, like no brainer. Straight liquid, I can do it. It's easy. On a full, I go for all liquid, but I bring some Cliff shot blocks with me, just because I used to do like a half of a power bar or something like that. But man, with some of those power bars, like I feel like I burn more calories chewing on them than I am gonna like put in my body.
Yeah.
So I went to Cliff. So I went to Cliff Box just to kind of give myself something else to kind of satiate what can be a hunger, but really isn't. It's more just like a different feeling of being full, liquid versus solid. But liquid, generally is either with gel or concentrated bottles. It's easier to take in. It's easier to digest, and when you're let me also cover this, is that that's all. It's also very dependent, usually most of the time, on effort. So if you have an athlete that's capable of racing at a very high effort level, like they're actually racing a 70.3. So your intensity is going to be way up there. it's going to be really hard for you to take in like a Cliff Bar or a Power Bar because and then to digest it. Because you look at the differences between caloric needs as well between like Olympic half and full. And one of the main reasons you're able to take in more calories on an Ironman, yes, is the distance, sure, but it's also the effort level. It's take the comparison between why can I take in more calories on the bike versus the run? Because you're not putting out as much effort, with your whole body. If I ask you to take in 350 calories on the run of an Ironman per hour, you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to feel bloated and gross. Whereas you take in, a good goal for an Ironman, I think, is around 350, give or take 25 calories per hour. So it's based on a lot of things, and again, a lot of it is also personal preference.
Yeah, I would imagine.
You making coffee over there? You're not paying attention to me.
No, I was listening to personal preference. I was just washing off a BlackBerry, actually.
A BlackBerry? You ditching the iPhone, going back to the BlackBerry?
I'd like to, man. I'd like to ditch phones in general.
I bet, man. No, you don't do updates.
I don't. Hello?
Different update every 4 days.
Oh, I know. Yeah, the updates for the phones. Oh, Jesus. Don't even get me started on that. But yeah, man, I used to go to Cliff Bars all the time. You know what? Or not Cliff Bars. I was a Power Bar guy, as you know. Do
you still have that pack?
It's autographed, man. Podium at Rev 3 signed.
Yeah.
I got a free box of Power Bars.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, one of my all-time favorite Mike Trolley stories is we're at one of our favorite rest stops on the Trace on a long ride, and we're about 4 or 5 of us, and we're like, yeah, man, we're talking about getting sweet deals on Power Bars at Kroger, and look over at Mike, and his comment is, I didn't pay for these. I won these at Rev 3 on the podium.
That is so lame, man. But I love it to this day.
I know you do.
But here's the thing, man. I used to eat a lot of Power Bars, and then they started changing them.
Yeah,
I didn't really like that original one is like, chewing on leather, but
it's like gross mud taffy.
And then they had one there right after that, which is sort of a straightforward kind of thing with chocolate chip, whatever. And then all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I look up and they all have frosting on them and sprinkles, and it's like, what on earth? And fudge bars, and it's just getting really kind of weird. So I've actually been leaning more and more liquid, and on my workouts, and that kind of takes us into the next thing is like, how do you experiment with nutrition throughout your training? Did I say experiment?
Yeah, how do you experiment? Oh man, how do you experiment with nutrition throughout training? It's another good question.
Stuart asked that, by the way. Thanks.
Yeah, Stuart Rogers. Yeah, he hops on the questions on these.
He's the guy in the picture diving.
Yes, yeah. If you didn't know, the guy of like the epic dive to the finish.
The beach dive.
The beach dive, crossing the tape, winning the medal, cutting the check is Stuart Rogers. He says, how do you experiment with nutrition throughout training? If you found something that works and you feel like it really, really works, then I don't necessarily see the point in experimenting. Having said that, if you don't feel like you know what works, then you can obviously try different brands, or a great way to kind of experiment, especially on the bike, is on the trainer. Just because a lot of times what you're going to find either is a lack of nutrition and you're going to just totally bonk and fail, which you don't want to be at, especially this time of year. That's why like this time of year is not the greatest time of year to experiment, because a lot of the athletes out there are heading out into like 80, 90, 100 degree temps. Mm-hmm. So the last thing you want to do is under go in way under your calories and find yourself stuck, in a bad spot. So do it on the trainer. And then, but the other thing you're going to come into play is, GI issues, which is the other common thing. Like, I've got athletes all the time. They're like, hey, this didn't work for me. Major GI issues. What's the deal? And one of the most important things to do is, like, you don't want to get too scientific and too stringent, but when you use the word experiment, you need to be consistent. Like, you need to figure out, okay, well, is it the nutrition that didn't work, or was it the fact that I had Mexican and 3 margaritas last night didn't work?
That's a really good point. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, like, people, like it's the same thing. It's like the same thing with people who are so worried about, like, this data, but you miss 4 workouts a week. Like, let's focus on the simple things. And so you really need to be like, so like for me, when you're getting closer to big races, I'll have the exact same meal every single night before a big ride or a big run. That way I know everything is in order. So if something does go wrong, at least I can, like, triage it down to, okay, was I feeling good? Did I sleep okay? Did I have too much caffeine? What did I eat last night? And then it's like, okay, well, did I eat anything out of the ordinary, or did I have too much coffee? It's like there's so many things you can look at as you, like, go backwards through your log. And a lot of times that's like something that I'll do with athletes when they totally fail on a workout or totally bonk, or I'm like, okay, let's work backwards. Like, tell me what changed. I'm like, oh, well, okay, I guess that makes sense. I had, 2 bowls of gummy bears at work yesterday for lunch. Okay, yeah, probably not the best idea. Also not the worst, but it's making things consistent, or your experiment isn't an experiment. You're just finding out different ways to fail and ways you can't track. Mm-hmm. But the trainer is a great way for the bike, just because you're in a closed space, and if you fail, you fail, but you're not stuck somewhere. But a good way is, and a lot of athletes will do this in the winter time, and I feel like it's a great time to do it. Obviously, it's not going to be too applicable right now because we're in the summer, but training your gut to take in more calories is a great thing to do over the winter.
That's what I do.
Okay, that's right. I think everybody puts on a couple pounds in the winter, which is totally acceptable, and I encourage it. That's also why it's the best time of year to do it. You're probably inside anyway, and if you're not, the temps are favorable outside, but you're taking in more calories. You're not so... first of all, you should not ever be the athlete that's worried to take in too many calories when they're working out, because you're going to put on weight. Stop that. Don't worry about it. But so, it's how many calories can I take in per hour, and how does that make me feel? And then can I take in even more calories the next time, or can I take in different kinds? Can I do a condensed drink with, all my calories in it, and then I can do water, or do I need to do it split? So there's a lot of ways to do it. You just have to pay attention, which is the hardest part of most things. What
is the baseline again on that? For running a ride, per hour or whatever.
Running, I think it's very, very different for a lot of athletes, at least the ones that I work with their needs. Mm-hmm. But that's also running caloric need. I mean, I think if you can get in 150 to 200 while you're running, you're doing outstanding. But let's be honest, most of that is going to come from a gel or like a Cliff Block, because for the cup of Gatorade or Coke that you snag from the aid station, let's be honest, about 15% of that goes down your throat.
Yeah.
30% goes on your face, 20% goes out the side of your mouth. The other one's dropped when you go for the handoff. So that's why it's important to, that's why it's also great for a lot of athletes to walk aid stations. Are you going to be losing out a lot of time? Not really. Especially if it's a hotter course or a hillier course, but to make sure you get your nutrition in is huge, or to take it on board with you. full Ironman, I like to shoot for 350 calories per hour. For me, that usually looks like straight liquid or EFS gel shots.
On the
For a
bike.
half, on the bike, yeah, for the bike. On the half, on the bike is around 250, 275. And then I honestly probably only take in like 200 calories total on the whole run.
On a half?
On a half, yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, if you think like if you're, depending on what you're running and how hard you're running, and then how short your bike was and how much you could take it on the bike, like, you're fueling on the bike for the run, and like you're not going to be taking in that many calories. I mean, I think 300 is probably the most I've probably ever taken in on a half. But if you're trying to run a 130 or 135 versus running a 2.5, then your caloric reads are going to be different, and your ability to take in calories is also going to be easier. If I asked you to go run at a 5-mile pace and take in 300 calories, you could do it. If I asked you to go run your 400-meter pace and then grab and take in, for a certain amount of time and take in your 300 calories, you'd find it almost impossible to take in because of your breathing, because of the energy levels, your stomach. It's all there.
Yeah. So at the end of the bike, if you're setting up the run, I mean, do you normally take some kind of gel swig or something right towards the end of the run to set up that first, couple miles?
Towards the end of the bike?
Towards the end of the bike, yeah, to set up the
I definitely try to finish off a gel flask like 20 minutes before I get off the bike. And I try to get most of my calories in with 20 minutes to spare, because I don't want to take in a ton of water, because we've all like gone out on a run or something with like we drank too much beforehand and you get that kind of sloshing feeling. Yeah, I don't want that. And then I'll also have a gel flask waiting for me in transition, and the first thing I do is take a swig of it before I even exit transition.
Oh, okay.
To get ahead of it on the run. And then I'll chase it down with water as they hand you water coming out of transition. But right there, I'm kind of getting ahead of the game before my heart rate gives up, way high.
Yeah, I think I've really screwed up my run hydration, or not hydration, nutrition over the years. I'm starting to really learn or believe that could be at least part of my run problem, a big part of it. Because it's weird to think that, like, well, my hamstrings hurt, but I'm like, yeah, but that's muscle, that's not being nutritioned. Or, I hate to do this to Stuart, but I think I'm going to give him another question.
It's one epic, belly flop in the sand, and now it's his own podcast.
I know, man.
Links people go to.
Is there a good way to calculate liquid needs in training to thread the needle between over and under hydrating? I think it's a great question. That's why I couldn't just walk away from it.
Yeah, well, and I think that it was asked a few times in just like different wording from other athletes as well. So let me tell you what I do, and I'm by no means a hydration fueling specialist.
That's me, actually.
That's Mike Terali, eligible bachelor. Color commentator, and then fluid hydration expert.
Yeah, but that you got to pay for my services on this.
It's for me. I take in straight nutrition. That's the thing. So I'll just give an example for what I did yesterday on my ride. I went to the lab yesterday, which is our airfield. It's like a 1.25 mile loop. And every time I get close to 7.3, about 10 or 12 days out, I do my last kind of long ride in full race gear minus kit. So I'll do my whole full race setup, my aero helmet, especially if I know the temperature is going to be the same, like going to Ohio. I know it's going to be warm. I like to manage like my effort level and my hydration that I'm practicing in practice. That's so it's actually going to be applicable to my race. And a lot of athletes don't do that. Why I don't think
most, if not all, are going to be somewhat hotter than your regular boat helmet. So that does a few things. That is going to make yourself hotter, which is also going to a lot of times make your perceived effort feel different. Just like when you're out running, when you're hotter and you're running, 750 pace at 85 degrees feels different than that same pace at 70 degrees. So you want to manage that, and you're probably going to sweat more. And then you're going to think about, well, I'm also going to be coming out of the water hot. You know, that the Delaware, whatever Lake State Park, the reservoir is going to be pretty warm, so I'm going to be toasty. So I'm already going to be hot. So anyway, I did that a couple days ago, yesterday. And every 15 minutes, my bike, my Garmin goes off, alerting me to take in my liquid calories. So in my down tube, I've got a bottle, I think it's like 20 or 22 ounces of my concentrated EFS. So I have 7 scoops with water in there for my EFS. So I'm taking in calories, but I'm also taking in fluid. And then after I take one swig of that, I also chase it with 2 to 3 big gulps from my Aero system that's up front, my between the bottle Aero system. That's just plain water. Other than that, I simply drink to thirst. I listen to my mouth and I listen to my stomach. Now, is that scientific? No, but there is a lot out there that says drinking to thirst is one of the best ways to make sure you're staying hydrated and not taking in so much water. Because there's two reasons I listen to my mouth and to my stomach. One, they are the north and south of what matters most in terms of fueling my body. And if my mouth is dry, it's telling me that it's pretty warm, so I need to take in fluids. If my stomach is telling me I've taken in too many fluids, then I know it's time to slow the effort down and let my body catch up. It's kind of like we talked about in the liquid versus solid discussion. It's your body has only a limited amount of energy it can expend, and I think we kind of forget this sometimes. It's like it takes energy for your body to digest. And so if you're trying to push 240 watts and digest calories, it's going to be hard. Much harder than it is to back down to 200 and digest the same set calories. So I go by that, but then I've also got an alert that tells me every 15 minutes that I need to take in. So no matter what, every 15 minutes I'm taking in A, fluid, and B, calories. But I'll probably take in 2 to 3 sips here and there in between those 15-minute alerts, just based on thirst.
Mm-hmm.
It could be 1, it could be 3. The biggest thing that I do is I take at least 3 to 6 big gulps of water only, and we've discussed this many times, before I take in any calories. Because for a lot of us, we've peed a lot, we've taken in a lot, and depending on when the last time you ate was, your stomach may be kind of barren. And so in order for your body to help more easily and readily absorb these calories you're about to shove in it, it's nice to have water at the base of your stomach. So I take in some water, but in terms of fluid intake, and that's also like if you're going to have take a scientific approach, which I'm sure people do, and there's nothing wrong with that, obviously, and it may even work better, is that your hydration intake for a race that's going to be, so I'll use Lake Placid for example. That's good. It's coming on this Sunday. The current forecast is a low of 55 and a high of like 73 with probable rain all day. But if you've been preparing for 90-degree heat and no rain and all sunshine, your hydration needs are going to be different. So if you don't adjust those, or if you just have a set hydration, then you might become waterlogged, or take in too much water and feel too full and have to slow it down. Or you might not take in enough if it's been the reverse. So I'm a huge fan, again, of drinking to thirst, and then also setting an alert if you take in only water, other calories, setting an alert to make sure you take in plenty of water, especially considering what you may or may not have to go through on the run.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting thing because, I think what do you think it is? It's like sometimes of course, I'm an older man. I'm an older gentleman, so I may have to pee a little bit more than the average person. But it's like sometimes once you open the floodgate, you can start peeing a lot. But I wonder if that has something to do with like starting in the morning, because we talk about that. Maybe it was coffee and water, and then all of a sudden you're just like, I don't understand how the body works sometimes, but it feels like there's an endless release of stuff like that. So I mean, I take it you don't have to deal with that very often, like peeing on the bike type thing. I mean,
On a half, I hope not.
right.
On the full, sometimes I'll definitely need to pee like at least once,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is good. Or,
Yeah, that's a good indicator, I think, probably,
yeah, I mean, I
on
think
some
knowing
level.
you pee is a good thing. It means you have hydration. I remember, I think I peed like 3 times on the bike at Louisville that last year we did it,
Mm-hmm.
last Louisville 1.0. But I was glad because I knew I had plenty of fluids. And hey, man, like one of the greatest skills you can learn is peeing while you swim. And I remember I peed while I was swimming at Louisville that year too, when I was elated in my first time. But yeah, it's a good. Now peeing like 3 times on a 70.3, that's a little too much.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that much. Like 1 time is probably perfect for a full. 1 to no times is probably perfect for a 70.3. If you're trying to race and go hard, 3 times is a lot, especially on the run. But I think it is what takes practice, and I'm sure there are many um, websites and scientific people who could say you need X amount per hour no matter what all the time based on body weight, effort, temp, all that kind of stuff. I'm not that, so I'm not saying I have all the answers either, because I definitely don't. But I know that that's what works for me.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not really a hydration expert, so I'm not gonna go into that.
Yeah.
I like to think I am. Let's go on.
Next question.
Stuart, you're.
Better. Oh, great question, Stuart.
He's dominating. Let's just wrap it up there. No. All right. How about this one? Jenny asks, how to train for a race that is nowhere close to conditions that you have to train in, i.e. hilly course, someplace with no hill access, or training for heat in a cooler climate, or training for cooler climates like Lake Placid in a warmer climate, but it might be too late.
Yeah, it's too late. Create your conditions.
Mm-hmm.
It is honestly that simple. Replicate as close as you can. If it's a hilly course, that probably means getting on your trainer and doing big gear work, which I'm a huge fan of. No matter what you're training for, it's to be on the trainer and do big gear work. If you're training for heat, that might mean putting layers on, or it might mean hopping on the treadmill with no fan. Same thing if it's going to be a really hot bike, you might not want the fan on your bike. But again, I don't recommend those in quality sessions, and we've covered that before. We've covered the hilly course too, but you can create your own conditions. If it's 60 and pleasant outside, then hop on the treadmill with a long sleeve shirt, and there you go. Welcome to 80. If it's going to be super hot and super hilly where you're at, then hop on your trainer, throw it in a big gear, sit up and do big gear work at 50 to 55 RPMs. You're welcome. There's the hill. It's really not that difficult. Same can be said if you're in a really, really hilly environment. Like, that's why a trainer is like one of, if not the most invaluable tool you can use for, whether it's a smart trainer or like I have, just a straight up regular trainer, club trainer. If you're living in a really, really hilly place where you're barely ever in aero, but you're doing like Ironman Arizona or Texas or Florida, where you're going to be in aero for the whole 5 hours, then hop on your trainer.
Yeah, we always ride out the lab, and it's flat, it's a circle, and I just put it in big gears and just work that chassis, as you call it, and just build up that strength and just crank those things and think of it in terms of hills. I mean, it's like a treadmill, or basically a trainer outside in a way. So I just like really concentrate a lot of times on big gear efforts and just simulate. I just, if you build strength, you're gonna get better at climbing. I mean.
Yep. It's and I think somebody mentioned on there in terms of you can use wind as training, and while I do think that is a good way, for most people they don't have the luxury unless you have a place like the lab that's controlled where we know what we're gonna get every time we go. Headwind one way, not wind the other.
Mm-hmm.
Versus looking at your random route and you're like looking at your weather app, seeing when the wind is actually going to be big enough to actually help you simulate. It's just it's hard, and a lot of people don't have that kind of flexibility.
Yeah, this is true. All right, Michael Ball wants to know any opinions on the newest Ironman run training trend that's sweeping the nation, the 10-17. Well, I think it's fantastic, dude. I think. Oh yeah, man! I can't say enough good things about the 10-17 running system. It's really helped me a lot. But I think it's still a little too early to file formal judgments. I do have to say that it has increased my enthusiasm for running, and it has, at least in these limited experiments, not seemingly affected my speed. So I feel strong, and I think it's one of those things where, you get... Well, you understand this stuff better than I do, but it's the aerobic versus the anaerobic, and if you can get your aerobic system in better shape, then you can all of a sudden do that at faster speeds a little bit longer for some reason, and that we don't necessarily understand, that only God knows. But those are the kind of things that seem like they're happening to me, and I've just been training for Olympic right now, so as I continue to... If I can get my swim in there. Yeah. I went down there and looked at the course yesterday. I rode my bike down to the area where the course is and kind of looked at the water, and man, it was screaming. Yeah. The Cumberland River is just flying right now, or it was yesterday anyway. I don't know if they have any tactics for that or not, but we're going upstream 500 yards. Yeah, unless something happens. There is a sliver of protection, it looks like, a little bit of a jut out kind of thing, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean, if I get sub 28, I think I'm going to be on the podium, which is not what I want to do. I just kind of want to go have fun. Yeah, you're right about that. I think I'll do that. You want to ask the next question? You've got the list there that I sent. I don't want to throw you a question that you know.
From Chris Miller, yeah. Well, obviously, we'll do the rest of these on our next podcast next Monday. Where I was not going to get to all of these since we're already getting close to.
Yeah.
Point. Yeah, Chris Miller, is your heart rate monitor slowing you down? Asking for a friend. Answer: yes. Adam Embry, and that is really like the answer is yes, especially this time of year. Adam Embry, would you ever consider trying to start your own triathlon event? Obviously, no people we don't like allowed. Let's censor that one. Honestly, I've thought about it, but it's not in my wheelhouse. It's not something I don't like dealing with. Politicals or heads of state and city officials and departments, and it's way too many moving parts, and if it's going to take time away from what I love to do most and what I feel like I'm best suited for, which is with this working directly with the athletes that I coach, then I'm not willing to make that sacrifice.
Well, you just want to throw the big bucks at it and get the title sponsorship.
Yep.
I know. I got to be honest, man. Trying to put on a triathlon just scares the crap out of me. I mean, I would have anxiety for years before and after that. I don't know how they do it.
Listen, it's stressful enough putting on a camp.
Yeah.
25 athletes of different abilities in open water for 2 days, a pool for a day, 3 bike sessions, runs. It's a lot. So that's enough for me, and it takes me like a week to recover. So I can't imagine what putting on like a triathlon would do to me. But yeah, hey, Steve Del Monte, if you're listening, wouldn't be opposed to hearing what sponsorship is for that women's try you have that's going to go on again next year in 2019 up in Philadelphia. So hit us up on an email. Ross Caffin.
Good question.
Very good question. Should I or shouldn't I do this race? This is a good one to end it on, I think.
I think so too.
This will probably be a more extended discussion, and we'll get to the rest at our next podcast on Monday.
Do it, man.
What factors do you recommend taking into consideration? The number one factor.
Family.
Your gut.
Oh, okay.
What is your gut telling you should do? And how many excuses does it? How many? Not excuses. What's the word I'm looking for? How many validating? Yeah. How many validating excuses does it take you to cancel out or silence or eliminate that gut feeling? So I'll go back to last year when Louisville obviously didn't go the way that I liked, and New Orleans was a week later, and my first thought was, oh yeah, because my mind's like, crappy race, I want to get back at it, I got all this fitness, I want to go, let's go to New Orleans. I'm thinking, my gut says, that's not good, like just don't do it. It's more travel, since 6-7 hour drive, whatever is New Orleans, you just had a weekend trip with Allie and Hayden, it's going to be more stress, or you're going to go alone. And so the longer my list was to like, yeah, but the longer your list of those goes, the more likely you are not to do it. And I ended up not doing it in what ended up probably being my greatest do not start ever since that race was canceled. The whole race was canceled the morning of, so I couldn't have been any more happy to which I haven't always done, listen to my gut, but just like anything in life, and I know it's not, there's not a huge check, it's like, does it feel right? It doesn't make sense, and and so many times we force things, especially in racing, and I go through this on every single Monday is my least favorite day of the week as a coach, because I get inundated with the post-race, must-race question.
Oh.
What race am I going to do next within 24 hours of just finishing the next one? Take time, soak it in, relax, chill out, let it digest. It's like, that's how you overeat. You shove too much in at once, and the next thing you do, you're so full you feel like crap. Well, that's what we can do with racing. We get so caught up in the moment, more than, and we're so not objective that we make poor decisions. And knowing Ross, I know that he already has a very good perspective, and we talked about this before in terms of he was debating on racing again after Chattanooga, doing another half, and then for the full Ironman Chattanooga, and he ultimately decided to not race at all, and just too much time away from Jasper, and like it's little things like that make sense. It's like, am I going to be putting a big ding in the credit card? Okay, probably not. Was it planned? Okay, no. So if it wasn't planned, why didn't I plan it in the first place? I think that's like one of the best ones you can always come back to. Okay, well, when I got all excited, really, really excited months and months and months ago to plan out my year, why didn't I plan for this again?
Yeah.
And that's because it didn't make sense. Oh, well, why the hell does it make sense right now?
Yeah, because you're racing with.
moment.
Yeah.
You're racing where you didn't like a result, or you loved a result and you want to do it again.
Right, you're choosing races with your eyes and not your gut.
Yep. Yeah. And so I think that, really honestly, just listening to your gut is a big one. If that's the biggest consideration, then health, and then obviously the biggest thing is, does it feel right and is it right, and then how does it fit in to my big picture? And if it doesn't fit in my big picture and doesn't complement what my ultimate big picture is going to be, or if it's not going to complement my training or my ability to be successful in the ways I want to be successful in this training for this race, then this should be a no. A hard no.
Hard no.
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. And I think everybody has made mistakes, and we'll always make mistakes.
I think another good way to make a decision on a race is to do it at toward the end of your run of the current race you're in. That'll talk you out of it.
Yeah, because it's always going to be, I'm never going to do this ever.
Right, man. It's like.
Signing up for one. And that's also, what, I get a lot from athletes too, is they finish an event, it's so grueling, it's so hot, and they work so hard, they're like, I don't ever want to do this again. And then not even 12 hours later, they're like, all right, what about this one? You know anything about this? 12 hours ago, you wanted to retire. I saw your bike on eBay, now I can't find it where you post. It's like, make up your damn mind. But yeah, it's like we're all that kind of prisoner moment. Just let it sit, or ask a friend who has, nothing emotionally invested in it, but has your best interest, in heart, and can be objective and is willing to. Because let me be honest, man, we live way too much in a world of people who always say yes. Yeah, you should do it. Yeah, you should do it. Yeah, you got this.
Yeah, I know.
You also need friends that just tell you to shut the hell up and go back to your business.
Mm-hmm.
And stick to the plan. And no, you need, everybody needs friends like that. Nobody needs a person who's a yes friend all the time. You need some no friends. You need some maybe friends. And on those really real bad days, you need the yes friends. But you need people who are going to be objective and just tell you to shut up and go back to work, or stay focused. And I'm lucky enough I have a wife, so I get that all the time anyway. Talking about races and changes and all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, it's does it feel right, and I think that's kind of the best way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and are you trying to overcome something right now in this moment, and you think that race 2 months from now is going to be able to do? You know what I mean? It's like this. Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it. That'll do it for the Q&A session here today.
Yeah, we'll do part 2 on Monday. I love having lists like these to go down.
Part 2 and part 3, I'm thinking.
Yeah, part 3 might be we'll do that on the road next week to Delaware, Ohio.
Yeah.
Again, if you're racing Ohio 70.3, Mike and I will be up there. I know we've had a lot of people start listening to the podcast or join the closed Facebook group. That's Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. If you want to search and be a part of it, listen to the Ohio podcast. We'll be up there racing. We have a whole bunch of team members up there, so make sure you say hi. Make sure you say hello. Mike is a lot more talkative and chit-chatty than I am, but I'm still a pretty nice guy once you get
Yeah. Once you get in there. I'll be happy to give you a little bit more on my 10-17 run.
That's it.
You know? Crown watches.
Stuart Rogers, memorabilia, paraphernalia, for everyone to love Stuart Rogers.
And posters, diving posters.
Yeah, he'll be making during the pro. There's no pro race this one, but we'll have Stuart Rogers press conference on it at Friday at 10 o'clock. Check in. We will be in town early, so we'll be there Thursday night. So hey, if you want to grab dinner with us, hit us up. We like meeting new people, and we love meeting listeners and getting feedback. As long as you like Firebirds. But yeah, if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can go to C26_triathlon. Twitter is Crushing Iron. And obviously, if you want to be a part of conversation. Either like our Facebook page, which is Crushing Iron, or you can be part of our closed group, because we always got lots of insightful questions and comments and posts, and that's how we got the topics for this podcast. You can go to and search Crushing Iron Group. Make sure you put the group on there. And if you want any other additional information on coaching, training packages, camps, swim analysis, the blog, or other videos, please go to our website, crushingiron.com, and that should have all of the answers there as well. Or if you want to email Mike and I directly, you can reach Mike at crushingiron@gmail.com, or you can email me directly at c26coach@gmail.com.
Wow, man, that was impressive. Did you close? You closed it hard. Did you? Was that off of like a presentation or something, man? All right, good job, man. We'll end it with that. I mean, I think there's nothing else left for me to say here. All right. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. Keep your head up. Butt up.